So now it's complex trinomial factoring, and this is 5.5. So the only difference from 5.4 is that now our a value is existing, and a cannot equal 1 when it's a complex trinomial. If a equals 1, it's just a simple, quick method that we already talked about in 5.4. So remember, just want to recall that factoring is the opposite of expanding. So now we can go on to them exciting questions where the a value is not 1. So I'm going to show you two different ways. It's your choice, whichever one you'd like to choose, whichever one makes sense the most for you. One is trial and error, and then one is more an algebraic method. So the first step that you have to do is you have to figure out what your product and what your sum numbers would be. So your product number, the difference from before, product was only the c term. Now your product is a times c. So here's your a, here's your b, and here's your c. So the product number is 6 times -5, which is -30. Your sum number still remains the middle term, which is plus 13. So we have to figure out two integers which multiply to get -30 and add to get 13. So -30, you can have -6 and 5, 6 and -5, 2 and 15, 3 and 10. So what you can just come up with is 6 and 5, 2 and 10, or 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 1 and 30. Come up with all of them. Because we know we have to have -30, that means that one of them has to be negative. So if we're trying to get 13, okay, so I see 13 here. However, if we make one of them negative, then it's not going to. It's going to be 7 somehow. This one is just way off, so it's 1 and 30 will not work. This one, if we want to get positive 13, if we make 2 negative, we have -2 plus 15, and this does result in positive 13. Now, since we got the two values that give this product and this sum, we have to use those two values to break up this middle term. So when we're writing this, we now have 6m squared. If we break up this 13m, we can write this as a -2m plus 15m minus 5. So notice that plus 13m is still the exact same thing as -2m plus 15m. We just wrote it larger. Now what we want to do is we want to do factor by grouping. And so what that means is we're going to group the first two terms together. So in factor by grouping, when we look at the first two terms, we're looking for what is in common between these two terms. So what's common? There's a 2 common and there's an m common. And so if you divide each of these by 2m, you're left with 3m and -1. And you look with the second part here, again, what's common? And a plus 5 is common. And if you divide plus 5, and no m also is not common, so you're left with 3m minus 1. And notice now 3m minus 1 is also common. So we can bring that common factor of 3m minus 1 to the front, and you're left with 2m plus 5. So here's a way of breaking down that middle term. This is called decomposition. And so you break down that middle term, and then you factor by grouping to get to your final stage. The last one is more of a trial and error method, and called the box method or the cross method. You might find different names for it. But the first thing you do is you're working with, shocking, a box. The first part of the box is the first term. The second part of the box is the last term. So in the first part here, we're looking for two things that multiply to get 2m squared. So this is 2m and 1m. Now, if it was different and there was a 4 here, it could have been 2 and 2, 1 and 4. And so this is where it's trial and error, because you have to try different values in here to try and get the middle term. So this one, to get positive 4, let's just say we said it was 2 and 2. Now, because we know we're trying to get a big negative in here, positive 4, we're going to say it was negative and a negative to get positive 4. If we multiply now, so this is why it's called the cross method, we're multiplying crossways. So -2 times 2m is -4m, and across this way is -2m. And if we add these together, we have -6m. So this did not work because -6m is not our middle term. So then we can try again. Now you don't have to redraw the box, you could just erase your page. We know 2m and m are the only possible situations. We're trying to get all the way to 9. So another set of numbers that multiply to get 4 is 4 and 1. And I could have written this as 4 up here and 1 down here, but you'll see why I did it in this order. And again, that comes from practice and noticing the pattern. So with 1 and 4, one of them, Again, we want it to be -9, so we're going to do that it's -1 times -4. And if we work across here, we have 2m times -4, which is -8. So that first multiplication, again, we got -8m, and then across this way we got -1m, and yay, this adds to -9m, which is what we're looking for. So as long as once you've done your cross, you get the middle term you're looking for, these are your factors. So how do you write those? You write them exactly as they are in the box. So your answer would be 2m minus 1 and m minus 4, and then it would be factored. That was complex factoring because this value was not a 1. Keep in mind, common factors, which you're always looking for first, and this factoring that we did, the decomposition and the box method, was because the a value was not 1. Okay, so if you have any questions about either the box method or the decomposition method, the product sum, just write those questions down and we'll see you in class.